Hello, this is the RPG Crawler, and welcome to another Indie Game Friday, where each week I take a look at a different independent role-playing game. It seems like I'm still on a strategy RPG streak, because this week we're going to take a look at Ambition of the Slimes. Developed by Altair Works and published by Fly High Works and Circle Entertainment, it was released on Steam on February 15th, 2018. As of this recording, it's available for $4.99 US. Ambition of the Slimes is a strategy RPG in the vein of classic turn-based titles such as Fire Emblem or similar tactics games, albeit much more simplified. An obvious mobile port, it has a cheery aesthetic very much inspired by classic JRPGs on the 16-bit and earlier consoles, but a definitely more modern feel. Although it still bears all of the earmarks of a touchscreen-based control setup, it does have a full keyboard, mouse, and controller compatibility, and oddly enough seems to be able to easily switch between them on the fly. The story of the game is simple, but at the same time strangely horrific. In fact, the entire premise of the game might squick a few people. In these cheery medieval fantasy kingdoms, humans have beaten back the monsters and spread forth over the land. Supposedly, the humans are then ruining it or something. So the weakest of the monsters, the slime, manages to learn a new trick. The slimes set out to try to fight the humans back. The various sorts of slimes have learned that they can go up to a human and forcibly enter them through an open orifice and simultaneously wear and command the human's body like some sort of screwed up meat puppet. Okay, maybe not in those exact words, but that's basically what they do. You'll see it in the animations. They crawl into the humans' mouths and then take them over. And make no mistake, the NPCs seem to find this just as horrible as it sounds, as commentary from some of the early stages goes to show. Regardless, with that simple premise, it is up to you to gather an army of slimes and set them forth against the human scourge. Gameplay starts by selecting a map stage on a menu. As you advance through the game, more stages open up, and within each stage are certain areas on an overworld map. Each area may open up further areas within the stage as they are completed. Each time you enter a particular area, you are given the option to try to complete it on a particular difficulty. Each difficulty level modifies the difficulty of what you face, but also gives increasing experience. Initially, you can select between easy, normal, and hard, but once an area is completed, you may select a challenge difficulty. After this, you select a team of slimes from those you have collected. Each slime has a particular ability, so it is useful to mix and match them for certain types of enemies. Indeed, you're given a preview of who you'll be facing, and certain enemy units will require different debuffs in order to handle, which will sometimes require you to select particular slimes for a job right off the bat. After this, you are placed on the main combat map, where most of the gameplay takes place. Fans of classical tactical RPGs may recognize the isometric tile-based style of the game, where different terrain and objects have different heights, and possibly other characteristics that limit individual movements. Each turn you may select whatever units you wish on your side, move them, and perform one action. Once all of your units have been moved, the enemy then does the same, and play proceeds back and forth in this manner. Each unit has a movement range that determines how far they can move, and the ability to jump up or down certain heights, which may limit which tiles they can actually reach. They also have a measure of hit points, a basic attack, which is faced by a defense rating, and an elemental alignment. Each of the 4 elements is strong against a particular element and weak against another one. For human units, they have different troop types that seem to also modify their effectiveness against certain other units, but I'm not entirely sure of that. Thus, between the troop type, the height compared to their target, and the elemental alignment of the troop and its target, different damage can be modified wildly. Thus, it's important to pay attention to all of the aspects above. Basic slimes generally have very poor offense and defense, but each has a special ability that may either buff or debuff an adjacent unit, and each slime may also take over a particular human unit that is next to them, by forcing itself into their mouth, as I said above. Blech. If the slime and the target unit's elements agree, then the chance of a successful takeover is increased up to 100%. Some units are more difficult to take over, either through being resolute or wearing face-covering helmets. These are the ones that require debuffs in order to affect. For instance, a heavy infantry unit may be caught via a sticky slime, so other units can take them over. Or a mounted unit may be slowed so that another slime can catch up to them. Yet other slimes may or may not have abilities that can be used on the field, but rather modify the units that they take over. For instance, a guard slime increases the defense of a unit that it actually inhabits. Once combat is over, all slimes that took part in the battle gain experience, even those who fell. Those slimes who gain experience may advance in level, which can increase their basic combat effectiveness, allowing them to survive long enough to find a host. Which can be a problem in certain battles, since if you use one slime to debuff a unit in order to take it over with a second slime, that leaves the first one vulnerable, unless you take appropriate account of other nearby units. After each battle, you may also gain another slime type, which you can add to your stable of slimes to select for future battles. Actual combat exchanges very much remind me of the early Fire Emblem games, where each unit gets an attack, and then is counterattacked in turn if the unit that they attacked is still alive and within range, with all applicable terrain and elemental effects in place. It should be noted that special attacks such as the slime debuffs, spellcasters' casting abilities, and so forth can only be done a limited number of times each battle, and this number is denoted in the abilities selection box. Graphically and musically, Ambition of the Slimes is firmly rooted in portraying the old-school 16-bit and prior JRPG-style pixel graphics, but on a 3D field. And honestly, I actually think it works. Some of the units could have stood to mimic a higher resolution version of the game, but I can also see what might have taken extra effort for what is basically a mobile game may not have been worth it to them. All in all, it does have a charming look, and the fact that they're rendered, albeit somewhat clumsily at times, on a 3D backing does keep it from just having another pixel art game feel. It does have some issues. Selecting squares and units can be somewhat problematic using the mouse, and is somewhat slow using the keyboard or controller. You can really tell that the mouse interface, which is by far the fastest and easiest to use, is just a transfer of the touchscreen interface, which may not be as responsive as one would wish. However, if you have a care with your selections, this can be mitigated somewhat, and since the game is turn-based, it really doesn't matter how fast you go. All in all, it is a surprisingly solid little game for the price. I'd initially decided to cover it because of the absolute strangeness of the premise, but I'm pleased to say that the gameplay itself is solid, if not groundbreaking. If you're a fan of strategy and tactical RPGs, you can bear with some simplified implementation of it, it may be worth checking out. And I will leave it at that. The link will be in the description below as always. This has been the RPG Crawler with Indie Game Friday Ambition of the Slimes. If you like what you've seen, remember to leave a like, comment if you've got any feedback, and subscribe for more RPG content, both tabletop and computer. Until next time, take care and goodbye.